Hey folks, this is Lenny Lawson, the car guru, back from a big vacation weekend over Memorial Day. My wife and I went to Greenville, South Carolina, and it is one of our favorite spots. Well, much of Greenville is not that great. It's kind of an industrial town now since that BMW located there. Used to be a big textile place, but Main Street, it's just gorgeous. It has pretty hotels, all kinds of cool restaurants. They have arts and crafts festivals. They have, this time they had a kind of like a fresh market with all kinds of cool things. But anyway, we had a great time. Drove the Porsche there, and a couple things I learned about that car. It's fast. I knew that to begin with. It is not a road car. You feel every single seam in the road, so not good. So we made it back, and we were in one piece. So I go out of the house and go into the garage to locate something my wife wanted me to find. Don't remember what it was, because I almost fell over. I felt suddenly, I don't know, like I wasn't steady on my feet. And I went back into the house and I told my wife, I said, honey, I feel weird. I'm going to lay down for a minute. Well, I laid down, probably stayed there for an hour, got back up, and the floor was moving. It was rotating. It was just the weirdest thing that I have ever felt in my life. And I started to get nauseated. And I had to lay back down again. I said, honey, something's wrong with me. And so we looked it up. I called my brother, who's a doctor. I texted my doctor. He says, well, sounds like vertigo to me. Have you ever had vertigo? Me neither. No idea what that was like. I know that it was a Alfred Hitchcock movie, but that's about it. So I was laying there. My daughter came over to check on me, and she brought her kids. And she said, Dad, let me call somebody and see. So she called one of her good friends, and she said, we fix that all the time. There's this maneuver, and it's called the Epley maneuver. And it will pretty much make it go away, or at least 75% of it will go away instantly. Where do you get this done? Well, you can go to the emergency room, or I can come over to your house and do it, or you can do it. Just watch a YouTube video. That's what they did. They watched a YouTube video, folks, to fix my vertigo. So they had me lay down with my head dangling off the side of the bed at a 45-degree angle and held it there for a second, and then turned my head the other way at a 45-degree angle, tilted about 60 degrees down. Yeah, these are precise measurements. And then you get up, and you get up with your head in a certain position, then you straighten your head, and then you turn around and on the side of the bed, and guess what? The floor stopped moving. I felt instantly better. And it's something about, I'm not going to get into the medical details because I don't really understand them, but it has to do with crystals in your ear. And my crystals had gone someplace where they're not supposed to go, and so this maneuver puts them back. And I have felt 100% normal since then. I'm on 48 hours approximately of normal. So now we can proceed on a normal edition of My Car Guru and talk about cars and your car life and how important it is to make sure that it's normal and how it could be so upsetting when it's not. I was listening to Dave Ramsey, the financial guru, and he was talking about an interesting phenomenon. He said, if there is somebody that is middle class and they have a middle class home, but they have two really nice cars in the driveway, then they will always be middle class. What does that mean to you? To me, I took that as people spend too much money on their cars. They spend too much money driving things and buying things that are above their head. And most people don't know how to buy. Most people don't know how to negotiate. There's so many mistakes that they make that cost them money because, I've bought 2 or 3 cars in my life. I can handle this. But you don't know how the game is played. And it is a game in a lot of dealerships. Some dealerships do it pretty straightforward. They just lay out the price. They say our prices are fixed. What you see on the internet is what you get. And, that's just the way it is. That's why people like going to CarMax. some of these large used car superstores where, the prices are already set and there is no negotiation. Oh, they might negotiate on whether you get a free set of floor mats or something like that. But Carvana, all of them, their prices are set. And people like that. They don't have to deal with the negotiation phase of buying a car. And you don't have to deal with it either if you control the conversation. And that's what most people don't know how to do. They don't have all of the facts at hand before they go into the dealership. I was talking to one of my business development center personnel, Anthony, and Anthony was educating me a little bit on what he's been going through in the BDC and what he has to deal with when it comes to people with really, really bad credit. Some people have such bad credit, not only do they know it, but when they are on the phone with you, they just go ahead and disclose it all up front because they don't want another heartbreak. They just want somebody that will help them. And, of course, most of that is on them. They put themselves in that bad situation. It's because they bought more than they could really afford to pay for. I say that, and I say it may not just be cars that they've been buying. It may be credit cards that get completely out of hand. And then they can't pay important bills like their power bill, their rent, a hospital bill. All of this stuff gets out of reach because of ignorant decisions that they make that they could avoid if they just get a little counseling every now and then. That's what this show is. It's a counseling session, and I can't cover everything about car life in one episode, but I've got about 400 episodes in the podcast library. So it's just Google My Car Guru podcast and go through the menu, and you will find a subject that you are looking for. You may have to do a lot of scrolling since there's so many shows. Okay, I'm going to take my first break. I'll be back here in just 1 minute. I went to a seminar one time, been to many, but this one was about selling cars. It was back in, I'm going to say, early 80s. And the guy putting on the seminar was a gentleman named Jackie Cooper. And he is still available on YouTube videos. They are all shot back in the 80s and 90s for the most part. But Mr. Cooper started at a little Chevy store in Woodward, South Carolina, and became a superstar. He was averaging just under 50 cars a month himself. The entire dealership sold about 65 cars a month. So Jackie Cooper was the dealership, and as a matter of fact, he ended up buying it when it was all said and done. But he had this consulting business, and he would do these seminars all around the country. And I went to one in Bristol, Tennessee. There was a little hotel right beside the Interstate 81. I think it was right down the street from that. I think it was a store that sold guitars because the whole building was in the shape of a guitar. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, I went to that seminar, and he opened my eyes big time to the psychology of selling. Now, everybody is a salesman. Don't kid yourself. You've been selling your entire life. I mean, you sold your first girlfriend on the thought of going on a date with you or going to the prom. You sold your dad on letting you borrow the keys to the family car. I mean, we all sell. We sell our ideas. We try to convince people in our department to fix this problem, and it's been a problem forever, and nobody wants to acknowledge it, and then somebody gets enough salesmanship in them to present it to the group. And if you do it in the wrong way, they won't buy it. So, everybody has to learn how to be a good salesperson. And, I think Jackie Cooper's main point, he said people don't like being sold. They love for somebody to help them buy and to help them make a smart decision. One of the funny things that he taught, and there were many in terms of buyer behavior and the way people think, was about this lady that came into a dealership that he was consulting at, and he was working in the sales department as a sales manager. And a salesman comes over to him and says, I just cannot get anywhere with this lady. She is so stuck on the fact that she will not buy a brown car. He was trying to sell her a Thunderbird, Ford Thunderbird, And the only one that they had in stock was brown. And she hadn't seen it, but she said, "I will not buy a brown car." And so Jackie Cooper went in to talk to her, and she said, "I don't care what you do, what you say, I'm not buying a brown car." And Jackie said, "Well, this is your lucky day, because the only Thunderbird that we have in stock is a beautiful color. It's called Ginger Moon Dust." And she said, "That sounds intriguing." So he called the detail shop. He said, you get that brown Thunderbird looking as good as it possibly can. Make sure it is spotless. Put the floor mats in the floor. Make sure the window sticker's in it. It has to be perfect. Dry it off, slick up the tires, and bring it up into the service drive. Well, about 20 minutes later, here it comes. And he said, "Ma'am, the car is outside." And she walks out the door and looks at the car. And the salesperson's sitting there gritting his teeth. Jackie Cooper's gritting his teeth. And she said, "That is the most beautiful Thunderbird I have ever seen." "What'd you say the color was?" He said, "Ginger Moon Dust." Wow. And to beat all that, she bought a car that is as brown. If you look up brown in the dictionary, there's a picture of that car. What's the lesson? Perception is everything. What you perceive to be true is true to you. But what we have to do as human beings is be able to look at a situation, look at a product, and understand that what we may be thinking at that particular moment is not true, is not valid. I think the biggest mistake that a lot of car buyers make is they go into a new car dealership or a used car lot or something thinking that all car salespeople are crooks. Now, I know if you listen to this show long enough, you may perceive that to be what I'm saying, but that's not what I'm saying at all. I'll say that many are. Many use questionable sales techniques. Many outright lie. And the important thing is that the car buyer, well, it could even be in the service department, that you are prepared for what you're going to hear and to understand how to sort through the you-know-what to get to a true answer. You get there by preparation, by understanding, let's say you're going in to buy a car and you understand, you've done your research, you know what your car is worth, what somebody's willing to pay for it, you've got some bids on it even, and you have the information as far as the invoice price versus the retail price on the car. You've looked online to see what other dealers are offering that same type of vehicle for. You've read the disclaimer page. Remember, go all the way down to the bottom. You cannot believe any prices online, period, until you read the disclaimer at the bottom that says what they're going to add after the fact. So you know all that, and then you know what your credit situation is. You know what your beacon score is. You know what your debt to income is, so that when you walk into the dealership, you can convey that information to them, and nothing is a surprise. When they come at you with a proposal, what they're going to say the car for, and you ask them, well, what's the interest rate on that? And they say it's 14.9%. And based on your research, whether that's a legitimate number or whether it's absolutely off the charts high, because your banker said, well, you have a 750 beacon score, your debt to income's in line, you're paying $5,000 down, you should be able to get the very best rate. If they have 0, you'll qualify for it. If the standard bank rate right now is 6.9% or a credit union, you know that you qualify for that. But also, if you know that you've struggled with keeping up on your payments, your credit card payments and stuff, you know whether you've got good credit or not. It's just a question of whether or not you're willing to look at your report card, which is the credit bureau report. I had a lady that had, I just looked at her. Sometimes you judge people and you shouldn't. I understand that, and I've been wrong so many times. But she didn't look like somebody that would have bad credit, and she was well-spoken and everything. And so we started talking, and I said, well, we need to pull your credit, take an application. Oh, no, please don't do that. I said, what? Why? I mean, we have to do it to see what you're qualified. She said, I don't want to know. That's really what she said. I don't want to know. So I had to sit there and sell her on the idea, or basically on the value of knowing. And it really boiled down to this. If you know that you have a problem and that there's something on your credit report that's dragging your credit down, then you can fix it. Maybe you have a charge off for a bill that you didn't know anything about. You forgot about it, but it's on your credit report and it's costing you a bunch of points on your beacon score. Wouldn't you want to know that? Yes, you want to know it. Sometimes it helps us to know things that hurt. And so you pull the credit, you know where you stand, and then you know what you can afford from a monthly payment standpoint. But you know all those other things first. Because if you don't, and again, if you're strictly a payment buyer, you're going to get hurt. So don't get hurt. Know the facts. Take your time. Go home and think about it. All those things that we talk about on My Car Guru are universal. I was looking at every place that my podcast goes, and I'm pretty popular in South Africa for some reason. South Africa's been in the news a lot. Houston, Texas is pretty big. Chicago, Illinois is pretty big. Let's see, Schenectady, New York. I've got listeners who download a lot of episodes in all these places, but there was one in this little, it's probably not a little place, in South Africa. Oh, here's Honolulu, Hawaii. So this is universal stuff. This is the way the car business is done. I don't care if you're in Italy, South Africa, Canada, any place. Unless it's a CarMax or a Carvana deal or something similar in those countries, it's going to boil down to a negotiation. And the salesperson that's trying to sell you the car, or the closer that comes in because the salesperson can't, is going to try to identify what your objections are, and then he's going to try to overcome those objections with words, logic, his logic, not yours. They want you to leave in the car today, and you want to leave in the car today if everything lines up. You've hit all 4 targets. Then you can go home and feel good. You don't have to wake up on Monday morning saying, "What did we do? Honey, we can't afford this. Let's go back to the dealership and take the car back." I wonder how many times that happened this weekend. I was looking at some of the sales reports from the Memorial Day weekend, and I saw where this one pretty big dealer, not too far from us, sold 36 Nissans over the weekend, and that was a record. And I saw where they were sold. And I wonder how many of those poor folks realize what they did because of the way that store operates. Now, if any of those buyers were sharp, not smart, just, they understand what the 4 targets are, maybe they're cash buyers, then they were hopefully able to get a good deal and avoid all the baloney, hogwash, whatever you want to call it. But if they were payment buyers, then they got it handed to them. Now, buying a car is not something you do every day. It's not like going to the grocery store, going to buy any, ordering from Amazon. I mean, you can spend too much money those ways as well, can't we? No, it's infrequent. But my goodness, what other sales transaction can you participate in and lose $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 on because you made a bad decision? That's what Dave Ramsey is talking about. He's talking about those people that try to live within this mental social construct in their mind where they think it adds prestige to have 2 really nice cars in their driveway, when really what they should be driving are 2 decent used cars. And then put the rest of the money in the 401k or something else. But 401k, putting money there is not fun. But it becomes essential when you get to my age, retirement age, and you look and say, "Honey, we can't live on Social Security. Why didn't we plan better? Why didn't we budget better? Why did we spend all that money we didn't need to spend?" Now we're going to suffer for it when we should be enjoying ourselves, being able to travel and do all that kind of stuff. It's amazing how you make 5 or 6 bad car buying decisions over your lifetime, and it will have a dramatic effect when you're talking about what that money could have earned in a nice stock portfolio, some type of a mutual fund. I mean, it's amazing. Okay, I'll take my last break. I'll be back in just 1 minute. I heard somebody say one time that if you think education is expensive, try ignorance. And really, that's what I try to do, is educate on this program. And if you have specific questions that you want to ask me, you can text it to me, 423-552-2020. I got a bunch of phone calls this past weekend, and I was out of town, and I was on a husband and wife retreat in Greenville, South Carolina before I had my vertigo incident, and I didn't take a lot of out-of-state calls, but I did get a bunch, and I will return those, I promise, as soon as I get around to it. But text seems to work better, 423-552-2020, or send me an email to lennylawson2020@gmail.com. And I'll try to improve your car life, which will affect your whole life in ways that you may only appreciate later on. And that's okay, because later on will get here before you know it. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.